Hi, Byron Hamby, District Data Teacher Trainer here in East Orange. And this month we're highlighting Akiva Simmons, who is a physical education teacher at Gordon Parks Academy. So Akiva, can you please tell us what health and fitness concepts students are learning in your PE class currently?
All right, so in our physical education class, we're learning a number of different things, but I'm combining the health concepts with the physical education movement concepts in order for the lessons to be more pervasive and for the students to understand the continuity attached to health and fitness. So right now we're continuing to do spatial awareness, locomotor and non-locomotor movements to make sure that they understand that all movement falls into those two categories. But we are also following the pacing guide that is set forward by the district curriculum. So in order to fit in the physical education concepts, I am just going to provide a little visual prop. So this is an apron that I use quite regularly in my classes. And some of my students I only see once a week. So we combine both. So after warm-up activities, we then go into our fitness concepts. So one class can be spent, I would say 10 minutes out of the class talking about the heart and the lungs. So that would be cardiorespiratory. Then we can talk about the esophagus, stomach, the small intestines and large intestines. That can be another 2 classes. Then we can talk about the brain. That can be another class. And then on the back of this apron, we have the kidneys. So we talk about excretion and how that fits into that's the last part of the digestive process. But I start off slow. So in each class, they get a concept and I build upon them those concepts in future classes so they don't get so much in one setting. But with the physical education activities, what I then do, this can be as anticipatory set where I come in, the students are super excited when they see the apron because one student can be selected to wear the apron and the other students can, I can mix these up, have the students put them in their proper places so that they can understand where these body organs, these major body organs appear inside of the body, and then they have to understand the function as well. So one class is spent on identifying and learning the proper names for the body organs, and then we understand the function and how they all connect to each other. So each class builds upon another class. So there are other questions that I'm going to be asked. I'm not going to give everything in one in one question, so I'll just wait.
No, thank you. That was very insightful. For the people watching this, can you explain why it's important for students to learn and develop these concepts that you're teaching?
Yes, so it is important for students to be well aware of what's happening with their body and to know the proper terminology for various body parts, various body functions. So we go through, and even with doing our movement activities, when I speak of different body parts, I may refer to those body parts using layman's terms as well as the proper term for that body part so students can understand that code switching that is involved. So that when someone refers to the upper part of their leg, they also know that that part of the leg has your quadricep muscles and your hamstring muscles. So we toggle back and forth between them. When I speak about the back, I speak about the lumbar area. When I speak about the stomach or the tummy area, I speak because the stomach is the organ. And I specify that because a lot of times we, commonly refer to our abdominal area as our stomach. And I explain to them that that's just something that is commonly, done, but the stomach is actually the organ that helps us to digest the food. So they're becoming aware of the terms involved in what these organs do. So, a word like digestion, for some of my pre-K and kindergarten students, some of them grasp the concept right away, and some of them it takes a bit longer, but it's still that important part of introducing them to these terms so that when they hear it again in a class, a later class, then they understand. And hopefully they'll have me in the next class if they're still at the school. So then they can say, oh, I remember that term from last year. And I have quite a few of my students that said, I remember it from last year, and they're starting to understand more about the term. So it's vocabulary building involved as well.
That's excellent. So can you tell us about some of the types of activities that students are participating in right now in your physical education classes?
Okay. Now, I did mention earlier that some of my students I only see once a week. So I have to try to, as best I can, condense everything, but make sure I maximize on the activities. So this one apron provides us with a lot. So I use this as an introductory prop. And then I just showed before that these organs, they're able to be taken off because they're attached via Velcro. So I take these organs off, and this is one of the activities that we're currently doing, because I spoke earlier about spatial awareness and locomotor movements. So just to give you a quick rundown of how a class might go. So students come in, there are spots on the floor that are appropriately spaced for social distancing. So they would come in, they would sit on a spot. We would do attendance really quickly. They can stand up on that same spot. As we stand up, I will reiterate, okay, all of our warm-up activities, all of our warm-up movements are going to be non-locomotor movements. What is a non-locomotor movement? Then I have the students tell me, okay, it's a movement where you're moving your body, but you're not moving from place to place. Okay, so with that in mind, every movement that we do, you must stay on your same spot. So that helps with, classroom management as well. So as we do our body isolation movement, starting from the head circles, and what I started to do is incorporate some leadership into the class, because we've been doing the same movements I'm trying to get into focus. All right, we've been doing the same movements for about a few months. So now I have the students, and for my larger classes, I'll have a female student, a male student. They are going to take their spot in the front of the class, and they are the leaders for the warm up. So now they become the teachers for that particular activity. After our warm up, we sit down on our circles, crisscross applesauce, and we get ready for the activity. Now I mentioned that Velcro apron with the major body organs, they are detachable. So with this setup in the back with the hula hoops, I'm able to take something that, it's pretty ordinary and place them on the floor in a pattern. So students are able to do their locomotor movements, but now they have to demonstrate that they're able to switch directions as well while doing that. But then we take it a step further, and I take the body organs, which in the front, there are about 9 of them, and I strategically place them within the hula hoops. So as you hop, or you gallop, or you skip, or for some of my students that they're really coordinated, we want to challenge them a little bit more, so they can pick up the pace. They can hop on one leg, they can do it at a quicker pace, they can try to jog, do more of a jog through the hula hoops until they get to their body organ. Then they must pick up the body organ. Then I place my apron on this clipboard, all of the organs are removed, and they have to place the body organ that they selected in the spot where it belongs. Now, if they're not able to do that, then we have another student that, they come up and they help their classmate. Then if they are able to place it in the proper spot, I select a student from the audience to be the teacher. So then they now ask the student a question about the organ that they selected. Now, remember, this is after we have been reviewing this for about, a few class periods, maybe 3-4 class periods. So many of them know the terms, they know the proper names for the various body organ, they know the functions of the body organs. So this is one fun way of me assessing what the information that they're retaining. And it also incorporates the physical movement activity and then a fun game, to keep them engaged.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I wish I was in your phys ed class. So last question, I know you kind of touched on this a little bit towards the end, but do you want to explain some of the ways that you assess your students' progress in Okay,
so what I just described could be considered a both informal and formal, depending on if I want to use a checklist. So then you have like, a recording of which student was able to identify the various major body parts and whether or not they were able to speak on what the function of that body part is. And also, one thing that I'm trying to do is make sure that the terms and the concepts that I'm introducing them to, that we connect them to real world situations. Because as we went into the Thanksgiving holiday, what I did, or the break, what I did was they had already been introduced to the major food groups, the 5 major food groups. And we spoke on the process of digestion. So when we talked about, and even when there's somebody's birthday in the class and they're talking about how they had cupcakes or whatever else, we asked the class, is that a sometimes food or always food? So it's a quick way to kind of assess what they're retaining. So they will say, okay, cupcakes and cookies, those are sometimes foods. But we had, chicken, that's protein. Can we eat that, most of the time? They would say, okay, that's always food. And so we are able to differentiate which foods we should, focus more on to develop a healthy, balanced diet, and which foods we should eat from time to time, but we can't eat all the time because it might, cause some adverse side effects for our health. Now, for this activity, like I mentioned, that can be the one that I described with the hula hoops with a checklist that could be considered a formal evaluation. But I also give tests. So I have an image of this apron, the one from the website, with the person wearing it, so that they are thinking about one of their classmates or themselves wearing the apron. And I asked a question. And remember, the grade levels that I teach are pre-K to 2nd grade. So they have multiple choice questions, and I read it so everyone is on the same question at the same time, but they're not allowed to talk. They must write their responses on the question, select whatever question. And for those that are developing their spelling skills and everything like that, I have a section, it could be the same question, and I have a section where they may have to write a response in. So you have multiple ways for them to let me know what they understand and what they remember, but yet everyone in the class is able to be included. So you have a multiple choice component where I'm reading the questions to the students so no one gets left behind. Then we have illustrations for like a guidance, because I have a version of the same test with no illustrations to make it more challenging for some of my more gifted students. And then I have one with illustrations, because one thing I'm trying to teach the students are to make sure they pay attention to context clues, in the questions that they're asking, quizzes, tests, if they're reading a passage. So, I tell them that sometimes you're given a clue as to what the right answer is if you're paying attention to the context in which the question is asked. Now, these are foam cutouts. We're heading into a certain season, and they're like gingerbread people. So I take this, and really inexpensive, and these are Velcro fascinators. So I use regular colored construction paper, and see the colors that are included in the detachable organs. So you could use regular gray construction paper, orange, pink, and print on regular black ink, but yet you have these fascinators. So once you cut out your shapes, you're able to put the construction paper put one part to the construction paper, put it where it's supposed to be or where it should be on the gingerbread people. And this right here is an assessment, because they're having fun. They think they're decorating, but I'm gauging what they remember in terms of placement in the body, for their major organs. Now we also have, these little things. There's a gingerbread person, a large one with large, sticky paper, but it's a gingerbread cutout. So I just draw the illustration. So, I can have this stuck in different parts of the gymnasium, so they have a visual from time to time. They can look up and see different things. If we're doing a quick cool down, where we're doing some deep breathing, and we're raising our hands, breathing in, putting our hands down, breathing out, I can ask them a question for an exit ticket that says, okay, when we breathe in, what are we doing with our lungs? Okay, we're filling our lungs up with air. Okay, what is that air rich in? Because I use words like that, like, okay, this air, when we breathe in, is rich in oxygen. When we breathe out, that air is rich in carbon dioxide. And when I spoke earlier about building upon previous lessons, when I covered the cardiorespiratory system, where I only focused on the heart and the lungs, and then I moved on to the digestive system, I talked about the kind of buddy process, where when I only talked about the heart and the lungs, I expressed that the heart allows us to move blood around our body, and that blood carries a few different things. And when we got to the part about the digestive system, I explained that when we take the good stuff out of food called nutrients, the nutrients is also carried around the body to the parts that need it through the blood. So that lesson, that earlier lesson, is then connected to the current lesson on digestion through talking about the function of the heart. And then when we spoke about the lungs being buddies with the heart, we spoke about when we breathe in, the oxygen that we breathe in is carried around the body through the blood when the blood is pumped through the heart, from the heart, and that is rich in oxygen. Once that oxygen is used up by the body parts that need it, then we turn that into carbon dioxide. And then we can also connect that to a health lesson where we talk about the fact that the trees, they produce oxygen and they use carbon dioxide. So we have a buddy relationship going on with trees, and that's why they're so important. And then that gets into, green living and all of that good stuff, and, trying to preserve our environment. So there's a number of different things that you can use with just a simple lesson and stack your ideas and concepts to make it really engaging for them. And especially to challenge my more gifted students and to help the other students along to have that buddy system to where they're pairing up. And then we have that pair relationship where I'm not always just talking to them. They have to be ready so that they can help their classmates, and they know that on any given day, they can be called to be the leader of an activity, a physical activity, after we've done that activity quite a few times, or they can be called as the teacher for that day to ask their classmates some of the questions that we've been, learning that we've been learning about in our classes, our previous classes. So it's I try to stack all of my lessons and build upon previous lessons to make sure that they're getting what they need to get out of the class and make sure that it's real to them, that it's applicable. Because sometimes I have students, speaking to me in the hallway, and I'll tell them, stop running. And they're like, yeah, that's a locomotor movement. But I can walk as well. That's another locomotor movement. So they're retaining a lot of the information and they're applying it to their everyday lives, their everyday activity, and things that they do outside in the community with their families. So that's one of the highlights of teaching my students.
No, that's amazing. And I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to allow me to highlight all the wonderful things that you're doing in your class. And we look forward to seeing more of you around the district. Take care.
You're welcome. Have a great evening.